Faith becomes fragile the moment reason learns how to question what it once only received. Welcome to another story in the series From Wonder to Power, The Journey of Thought. Today I want to explore Thomas Aquinas and the rationality of faith, and how philosophy and theology attempt not to defeat one another, but to coexist within a single vision of truth. Medieval Europe lives between two inheritances. Revelation offers certainty, but philosophy offers method. Aristotle returns through translations and commentaries, bringing a language of cause, structure, and necessity. Many fear this language. If reason explains too much, what remains sacred? If faith resists inquiry, what remains intelligible? The tension grows quietly. Can belief survive the demand to justify itself? Aquinas enters this conflict not as a rebel, but as a mediator. He refuses the idea that truth can divide against itself. If reality has one source, then faith and reason must ultimately converge. The challenge is not to choose between them, but to understand their proper order. This episode begins where wonder seeks structure without surrendering meaning. Here, philosophy does not replace faith, nor faith silence philosophy. Instead, a new architecture emerges, one in which thinking becomes a form of devotion, and devotion a form of understanding. Midday bells fade as Thomas pauses in the cloister, chalk dust still marking his hands. Around him, students argue with the urgency of those who feel truth slipping away. Some defend belief as if thought were a threat. Others treat reason as if faith were an obstacle. Thomas listens without irritation. He has come to see that most conflicts arise not from real opposition, but from confusion about what each faculty is meant to do well. For him, faith and reason move along different paths toward the same horizon. Reason examines what can be known through causes and demonstration. It studies order in nature, distinguishes form from matter, and advances step by careful step. Faith receives what lies beyond that reach, not because it contradicts reason, but because it fulfills it. What reason proves, faith does not replace. What faith reveals, reason does not dismiss. This harmony appears in the quiet rhythm of study. When Thomas reflects on the structure of the world, reason reveals coherence rather than chaos. Causes connect. Effects follow proportion. Truth does not fragment into competing domains. When revelation speaks of God, it does not erase these insights. It places them within a wider frame. Faith does not weaken nature. It affirms that nature is intelligible at all. The balance also restrains excess. Thomas rejects a faith that fears inquiry, because fear suggests fragility. He also resists a reason that claims independence from all higher reference, because it forgets its own limits. The human mind can know much, but not everything. Recognizing this is not defeat, but clarity. Faith becomes trust grounded in a rationally ordered reality that points beyond itself. Seen from a distance, a synthesis takes shape. Faith regains intellectual dignity. Reason learns humility without retreat. The tension inherited from antiquity and sharpened by later debates is not erased, but stabilized. Thought proceeds without panic. Belief stands without embarrassment. In this quiet equilibrium, Medieval philosophy finds a center strong enough to endure without spectacle. The classroom hums with a quiet, disciplined attention as Thomas begins to speak. He does not start with God as a concept imposed from above. He begins with what surrounds everyone already: motion, causation, contingency, degrees of perfection, order. These are not mysteries invented by theology. They are facts that press themselves upon anyone willing to notice. Thomas asks his students to remain with these realities and resist the urge to jump too quickly to conclusions, you see. He moves carefully, step by step. Things move. Whatever moves is moved by something else. A chain of motion cannot stretch back endlessly without dissolving explanation into emptiness. There must be a source that moves without being moved. Thomas does not name this source at first. Naming comes later. Reason must first reach necessity before faith offers language. The same method guides the other paths. Effects require causes. Contingent beings exist, but they do not explain why existence itself is possible. Degrees of perfection appear, suggesting a measure beyond comparison. Order emerges where pure chance would scatter. In each case, Thomas refuses shortcuts. He does not claim that reason can see God directly. He claims only that reason, if honest, is led beyond the visible world. Students notice what these arguments do not do. They do not console emotion. They do not eliminate doubt by force. They do not describe God's essence. They prepare the ground. They show that belief in God is not an intrusion into thought, but the completion of explanation. Reason discovers its own limit without collapsing into failure. Thomas insists on that limit as much as on reason's reach. These arguments establish that God must be, not what God is. They mark a threshold rather than an arrival. Faith begins where reasoning ends, not because reason breaks down, but because it completes its task. Seen from a wider perspective, a careful synthesis emerges. Theology is anchored in shared experience rather than private intuition. The existence of God becomes accessible to natural reason, while divine nature remains known through revelation. Belief gains intellectual legitimacy without surrendering mystery. When the lecture ends, there is no applause. The arguments have not conquered anyone. They have simply shown that denying God demands more strain than acknowledging Him. Reason, having followed its own path, arrives where faith has been waiting without anxiety. Manuscripts lie open across the desk, their margins crowded with careful distinctions. Thomas reads slowly, not because the arguments overwhelm him, but because each must find its proper place. For him, reason must first understand where it stands before it attempts to decide what it can achieve. In theology, the question is not whether reason belongs at all. It is what role it is meant to fulfill, right? Thomas allows reason to enter theology neither as ruler nor as intruder. It arrives as an instrument ordered toward a given end. Theology begins from revelation, from truths received rather than discovered. Reason does not stand above these truths in judgment. It works within them. It clarifies terms, traces implications, resolves tensions, and protects coherence. Its service is not creative invention, but intellectual discipline. Yet, Thomas names the limits of this service with equal care. Reason cannot demonstrate mysteries as it demonstrates natural causes. The Trinity, the Incarnation, grace. These remain beyond proof. Still, reason is not excluded by their depth. It is invited to show that mystery is not absurdity. To distinguish what exceeds understanding from what contradicts it becomes one of its highest tasks. Without reason, theology risks arbitrariness. With reason, it gains form without losing transcendence. He also guards against a quieter danger. Reason must not pretend neutrality. Within theology, it works under light it does not produce. This is not humiliation, but orientation. When reason accepts its horizon, it becomes more precise rather than less. It learns to advance rigorously while recognizing where demonstration must give way to trust. Students sense this balance in practice. Arguments unfold with seriousness. Objections are examined rather than dismissed. Yet conclusions remain open upward. Theology does not end in closure. It ends in ordered understanding that knows when to question and when to listen. Seen from a wider perspective, Aquinas secures a stability rare in intellectual history. Faith provides the source. Reason shapes the articulation. Revelation offers content. Logic provides order. Together, they form a discipline capable of thinking without overreach and believing without retreat. By the end of Aquinas' work, faith no longer appears as a fragile refuge from thought. It stands as a structure that reason can inhabit without fear. What Aquinas gains is equilibrium. Philosophy regains its dignity without challenging revelation's authority. Theology becomes intellectually ordered rather than defensive. Reason learns to operate freely within limits, and faith learns to trust inquiry without anxiety. Together, they form a vision in which truth does not fracture into rival domains, but unfolds along a single horizon of meaning. Wonder finds order without losing its depth. What is lost is the simplicity of earlier belief. Faith can no longer remain untouched by questions once reason has entered its house. Doubt does not disappear. It becomes more disciplined, more precise. The cost of coherence is complexity. The unity Aquinas offers requires patience, training, and acceptance of hierarchy. Not every mind will follow where synthesis leads. This chapter marks a turning point in the journey from wonder to power. Thought becomes a servant of belief, yet also its safeguard. The intellect is given freedom, but not autonomy. Authority remains, but it must now justify itself in rational form. In the next chapter, Aquinas turns from the structure of knowledge to the structure of existence itself. If faith and reason share one truth, then the world must reflect a rational order accessible to both. Here emerges the idea of natural law and the hierarchy of being, where ethics, politics, and metaphysics converge within a single, intelligible cosmos. If this series has sparked your interest and you wish to delve deeper into the topics discussed, I invite you to the source from which it originates. This book takes you on a journey from the 7 sages of antiquity through the modern revolution with Kant and Hegel to the contemporary philosophical dilemmas of the 20th and 21st centuries. In the book, You will find significantly more details than I could present in the film, as well as space for your own reflection at your own pace. It is this very book that forms the foundation of the entire series you are watching. If you wish to explore the history of philosophy in its full version, get it on Amazon. The link is in the description of this video.